Hi, I'm Jordan, and welcome to episode 3 of What Software Development Can Learn from Other Industries, where the title is very long and straight to the point, but that's kind of the fun of it. In today's episode, we're going to be talking about AI, artificial intelligence, and one of the common sentiments that goes around is how can we compete when we're not pouring billions of dollars into it like other people are? And I get it. Sometimes it feels like you need more engineers, bigger budgets, and fancier infrastructure, but I'm going to take this episode and tell you about a fighter jet pilot in the 1950s named John Boyd. And what he figured out was it wasn't how good your jet was, but about who can adapt to rapidly changing environments, which AI is the ultimate rapidly changing environment, and we'll take some time and dive into that. But it's not about the one with the more resources, it's about who can adapt the fastest. So let's jump right in. I'm going to tell you about a guy named John Boyd, who had the nickname of 42nd Boyd. He was a fighter jet pilot in the 1950s during the Korean War era, and he had that nickname of 42nd Boyd because he had a standing bet that he could beat anybody in air-to-air combat in 40 seconds or less, even starting from the point of disadvantage. Here's the kicker. He never lost a bet. But Boyd wasn't just a skilled pilot. He also really had an obsession with trying to figure out why our pilots seemed to fare better than the Soviet ones. Because on paper, the F-86 Sabre couldn't keep up with the MiG-15. During the Korean War, American F-86 Sabres had a kill ratio of, some early sources say 10-1, some say 5-1, but it was definitely a positive ratio against Soviet MiG-15s. On paper, the MiG was actually the better aircraft in many ways. It could climb faster, turn tighter at certain speeds, had a higher service ceiling, so why did the Sabres dominate? Boyd spent many years studying this, and what he ultimately came up with was it wasn't about the planes themselves. It was about the decision-making process the pilots were performing. In the 1960s, Boyd introduced the OODA Loop, and it is very fun to say OODA Loop, but it actually stands for Observe, Orient, Decide, and Act. And let's take a moment and walk through that process in the lens of a dogfight. In Observe, the pilot gathers information. Where's my opponent? What's their altitude, speed? Are they turning, climbing, diving? This is the point where it's the data collection part. In Orient, this is the most critical step, and Boyd spent the most time on this one. Orient means you're making sense of what data you just got. It's what you're observing, right? And it's filtered through a number of criteria: your training, your previous experiences, your current mental state. You are not just seeing that the enemy is turning left, you're interpreting what that means. Are they setting up an attack? Are they running? Is it possibly a trap? Orientation is where the biases live. It's where experience matters. This is where you're typically going to be either fast or slow compared to your competition. The third one is decide. Based on your orientation, you choose a course of action. Do you pursue? Do you make a safe retreat? Do you dive? Do you fire? And the fourth one is where you're actually acting upon that decision. You stick your moves, you thrust forward, your weapon system is engaged, and then immediately you're back to observe, because that's the moment that you act. The situation has now changed. Your opponent is reacting to your action, new data comes in, and the loop starts again. The OODA Loop isn't a one-time process, it's continuous. It's a cycle that never stops during combat. And yeah, it really is that simple. It's not about the better jet or who has more weapons. It's about the pilot who is going through that process of observing, orienting, deciding, and acting faster than the other one. And if you can complete your OODA cycle faster than your opponent, something really powerful happens. While they're still deciding on old information, you've already acted and created a whole entirely new situation. They observe your location, they orient, but by then you've already moved on to a whole entirely different situation. You're now at a tempo that they cannot keep up with. They're always going to be responding to where you were and not where you are. Boyd called this getting into the opponent's OODA loop. When this happens, the opponent gets frazzled. They get confused, disoriented, and they make mistakes. It seems like they're fighting ghosts, but it's really just processing speed. So let's look at the OODA loop in the context of AI. With Observe, you're going to be doing your research, seeing which models drop, what kind of capability they have. And Orientation is where you're going to be thinking about these new features that are coming out, these new models, and you are going to be looking at your company, your product, what users actually want. And then deciding, is this something that we want to tackle? Is it something that's maybe not quite good enough, or yeah, it's probably just a false promise for now? And then finally, obviously, you would act on it. But here's the thing. Once you've completed that loop, you just got to go repeat it. The process starts all over again because the game has changed. And let me tell you that AI is accelerating at a pace that is really hard to keep up with right now. And I'm going to run through just a couple examples. It is January of 2026 when I'm currently recording this. And there's just this month, there's two huge things that people should be observing. The first one is a research into the recursive language models that really has the potential to massively extend research and response capabilities. This isn't just like some kind of incremental improvement of 10%, but potentially a fundamental shift in how these systems work. Obviously, I'm not saying that this is 100% a thing. This is just an example. Do your own research. It's new stuff that's coming out. The second one I want to talk about is Claude Cowork, which was literally built in a week and a half. I am not kidding, but it is a game changer. It takes the perks of Claude Code and gives it to non-developer type of people to be able to do work and build their own workflows with Claude. This is the environment that we are operating in the world of AI. And if your team hasn't mastered how to quickly observe and orient, you don't even have valuable things or tangible things that you are going to be deciding and acting upon because those are potentially already outdated from months ago. And that's the world that we are living in. The game has totally changed and it's only going to keep changing. And just want to take a second to kind of highlight what I just talked about. It took 2 weeks for a product to essentially get built up and released to the public. The level of change that we are seeing in the world right now is something that we haven't seen. And the teams that are going to flourish are the ones that have mastered the ability to be flexible and agile and constantly refocusing and kind of repointing their directions. The teams that are able to keep on top of the modern requirements and aren't making decisions based off of things that are, 9 months or 12 months in the past, those are the teams that are really going to flourish. And I get what you're saying. Yeah, Jordan, we want to observe and make choices. Yeah, I get it. It's simple at its core. But what I'm going to be proposing is a set of concrete steps and tips and tricks on how your teams can make sure that your OODA loop is something that is foundational and disciplined. The first step is to build consistent observation systems. For research papers, you can look at things such as Hugging Face, or for practical applications, seeing where you can put it in your workplace. YouTube, blogs, things like that are really helpful. And also at your current work, make sure that you're talking to their users and understanding what their pain points are. That's part of the observation. Step 2 would be to improve your orientation speed. You don't just because there is some capability out there that's brand new doesn't mean you necessarily want to have it out there. You need to understand what your team is trying to do. Are you looking for a new product, or are you looking to make things easier? Are you trying to have less bloat in the world in general. These are things that you need to be having consistent conversations around on your team. Making sure that your team has AI literacy so they know what is possible and aren't just chasing fads for the sake of chasing them. Step 3 would be to make sure that your team is having consistent conversations around the latest news. I know everyone's not going to be capable of reading every single research paper out there, watching every single YouTube video or blog, but jointly, we can cover a lot of ground, and just making sure that your team has the atmosphere to where you guys are able to have these open and honest conversations will be really monumental. And that's it for episode 3 of what software development can learn from other industries. This was probably the most fun episode for me to write so far because I feel very passionately about AI for one, but then also I am a veteran of the aviation field within the Navy, so it struck chords all around. I'm open to feedback. If you liked parts of this, if you didn't like parts, please let me know. And otherwise, we'll talk again soon. Let's get better every day. Peace.